Well, good evening, everybody. What a great way to start our evening program. I am Drew Carter from the admission office. I'm so glad you're here tonight. First off, congratulations on your acceptance. You should be so proud. This was a particularly competitive year in admissions, and you should be so proud for having endured the last 14 months and making it through the admission process. What a great place you are in right now as holding an acceptance letter from Holy Cross in your hands. A few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. First, please put any questions you have in the Q&A. And while we're talking about the Q&A, Catherine is a current junior. There she is. She's going to be behind the scenes off camera asking questions. So any questions about student life, throw them in the Q&A. Catherine will be happy to answer them. Thanks for your help tonight, Catherine. And secondly, closed captioning is available. It's a little button down at the bottom of your screen. Please make sure to use that if that's something you desire. And let's get started with my first question for Danielle. Danielle's a current senior at Holy Cross. Danielle, I'm hoping you can talk to me a little bit about the experience you've had with the summer internship program. But before you answer that, if you can just give us like not the full Holy Cross intro that takes 5 minutes, maybe the like 12-second where you're from, major, or something like that, and then maybe tell us a little bit about your experience with summer internships.
Hi, everyone. First off, I just want to say congratulations on being accepted into Holy Cross. I'm so excited for all of you. I think it's such an amazing school, and I personally am really devastated that I have to leave in a month. So I hope you choose to come here. So I'm from Mahwah, New Jersey. I'm an economics major and a statistics minor, and I'm currently here on the Hill in my off-campus house. So my summer internship experience. So I think this past summer, I had my most valuable summer internship experience. I worked at Jefferies Investment Bank in New York City. And although it was virtual, it was still such an amazing experience. And I actually found out about Jefferies through an alum who helped me prepare for my super day and my interviews to get my internship. And I overall had such an incredible experience and am really excited to say that I got an offer back. So I'll be returning there full time in New York City after graduation. So I'm very excited about that.
Danielle, let me just ask a quick follow-up. Can you tell me about like that experience as going through a summer internship? Were you nervous? Like, did you know what to wear? Like, can you just talk me through some of that? I can imagine as a college student, having an internship could be a little intimidating. Can you just talk me through what that felt like?
Yes, I mean, I was so nervous going into it, as I know everyone is, because, being a college student and being in a professional atmosphere, it is intimidating at first. But once I was there and I got comfortable, it's all what you make of it. And as long as you work hard, and as a Holy Cross student, I felt very prepared for my internship. And I often met with people in the Career Development Center. So I went into it feeling very confident in myself. And then throughout the whole internship process, I kept in touch with the alum who works at Jefferies, and I met with him once a week, and we talked through any anxieties I had or any questions, and he was so helpful. So although it was really intimidating at first, I felt very comfortable as time went on.
Okay, one quick follow-up, one last. So they offered you a job. Like, how did that happen? How did you find out about that? When did that happen? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so after my internship ended, we were told that it would be a few more days until we found out who got return offers. And I was so anxious because I had such an incredible experience at the bank and I really wanted to work there. But basically, Jefferies called me. I'll never forget that phone call because it was like such a relief. They called me saying that I had been accepted into the healthcare investment banking division. And I was especially excited about that because I'm very interested in the healthcare industry. So they called me and they told me, and I was so excited. And it was just like the most exciting, one of the best moments of my life. And I'm so excited to work there now after graduation.
Okay, so let's switch quickly to Chris Morgan, class of 2016. Chris, I know you had an experience with an internship as well. Can could you give us just a brief little synopsis of what that experience was like? And before you do, you can just give us the 12-second Holy Cross introduction.
Absolutely. Chris Morgan, class of 2016, economics major. Thoroughly enjoyed my time on the Hill. It was definitely a life-changing 4 years. First, congrats to all the accepted students. And Drew, just to elaborate a little bit further, yeah, my internship experience was definitely something that was pretty special. The company Ocean Spray actually came back specifically looking for a candidate from Holy Cross. So they started their search only at our school. Then I had the chance to work with some alumni to prepare for my interview. And really from the process of actually landing the position through the end of the summer, also in a fairly similar position where I, on my last day, actually was presented a full-time offer to come back, which I ultimately accepted. And it really springboarded my career to where I am today. And for that, I will be forever grateful for, because that start really allowed for me to be in the place that I am today. So I really owe everything with my career to the career planning office and to our alumni that constantly take times out of their days to reach back out and work with current students.
You mentioned this experience you had of preparing for this interview. I can imagine it's one thing to say, oh, you got an interview for an internship. That's exciting. And then the second wave of anxiety would be like, what do I wear? What are they going to ask me? What should I say? Do you remember all those, for lack of a better term, anxiety and doubts that were spinning through your head?
Yeah. I remember the anxieties that were really kind of in the mind when I started the process, but actually when game time hit, I was ready. I really wasn't nervous going into it because I had a chance to work with both alum that were just in the industry, but also an alum that actually worked for the company. So when I went into the interview, confidence was an understatement, even from the questions that they were going to ask and whatnot. So just feeling really prepared going into it was huge, that I can honestly say I didn't have with other internship interviews outside of that one, because I just didn't have that true visibility that came with having those conversations with alumni that were there.
And when you had this experience of an internship, I would imagine it gave you a sense of like what it's like to work in the real world and what, I don't know, what you thought that your skills might fit in the real world. Do you remember a moment when you started to realize, I think I'm starting to figure this out. I don't feel like my head's spinning every day?
Yeah, I think it was actually interesting because having the economics background, I actually was doing more of a finance support role for the group. And I found out through my internship that my heart and soul was really in procurement. So my first role coming out, I was actually able to transition from finance to procurement during my internship, going into my first full-time position without having to take that leap of faith out of college and then having to kind of do that career pivot some point later on. So it actually worked out really well.
Okay, now on to the senior member of our panel tonight, Katy Fernandez. Can you, let me ask you a more general question. Do you remember the first real time that you sort of felt the kind of the power of the Holy Cross Alumni Network?
Sure. Well,
let's hear your 12-second Holy Cross introduction as well.
Well, I feel old now, Andrew, so thank you for that. I, class of 2015, I'm Katy Fernandez. I was music pre-med at Holy Cross. I actually got the chance to go to Holy Cross with my sister. She's class of 2014 and my cousin. So we are truly a family of crusaders, already recruiting the youngest generation. I would say that I felt the power of the Alumni Network actually when I was a student. My junior year, I was the alumni student rep. And that's a 2-year term. And I actually used to work every single alumni weekend. I actually have alums that aren't even in my fields in which I get to still interact with that are class of 75 and above and even older classes. And I felt supported by them all throughout the experience. And fun fact is that I actually work for 2 Crusaders as well. My direct boss, which is the head of ESPN Plus, is a Holy Cross alum. And the head of acquisition and original content, Burke Magnus, is also a Holy Cross Crusader. So we are strong in the Walt Disney Company.
And, you know, when you're a student and you start to interact with alums and people who've had experiences in the past at Holy Cross, Did that start to give you a sense of what their connection was like to the school? Because some people go to a college or work at a business and they leave, and once they leave, they've left. But my sense always has been is that once people leave Holy Cross, they don't truly completely ever leave. They always still feel connected. Did you get a sense of that when you were a student, meeting these people through the alumni program?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know my first internship at Holy Cross was actually through an alumni. And my current boss was actually my mentor my junior year. He was the reason why I didn't go on to medical school or a different career path. He actually was the first person to identify that I had great communication skills and encouraged me to come work for him at the NFL Network after I graduated, and set me up for a bunch of coffee chats with incredible organizations in his network like NBC, Warner, YouTube, etc. He's really the reason why my career has been propelled. And I'll go on record to say the Holy Cross Network is the reason why I'm a director at 27 years old at one of the best companies, I would say, in the world in media. So I would swear by the Alumni Network. I also know that it's also my responsibility to give back and propel and pull students forward. So I'm constantly chatting with current students. I'm on multiple different committees. So I feel like once you're a crusader for life. So congratulations to all of you for already being part of an incredible family just by being accepted. And I truly hope that all of you come and join this incredible network.
Okay, so let's go back. Can you tell me something about these coffee chats? Like, what is that? What was that like? Like, paint a picture for me.
Yeah, so, the coffee chats that I was doing then were meeting tons of different alums that were signing up through the Alumni Association to come in, or were connected to the school, and I would come and see them in different events. And now the way that I partner with them is I was an official alumni. By the way, that noise is like an 8-month-old pandemic puppy that doesn't understand panels at all. So don't be surprised if he makes a cameo. And I have coffee chats now, alums that, current students that reach out to me on LinkedIn. My boss and I, we actually host Holy Cross students at ESPN when the world was open, and we still have that connection readily available. So I would say that every single alum is ready and willing to have coffee chats. And I would go on record to say that as well. Chris, I'm probably sure you get tons of them as well. So I would say that if you do get accepted, there's never too early to start reaching out. I currently talk to students that are freshmen all the way to junior and seniors already looking at the marketplace.
Danielle, back to you. I want to hear a little bit more. So you had this incredible experience with the summer internship program, but like, how did you even know about that? How did you find out about it? What did you do to get that position? Can you talk me through that? That's what that timeline was like for you, and how you even found out what to do.
Yeah, so I was going to the Career Development Center a lot when I was a sophomore, and I knew that I was really interested into finance because I am a math person and I thought it was such an interesting field. And then through going to the Career Development Center, I learned about the Holy Cross Finance Networking Reception, which takes place every year in New York City. So I went to the networking reception and I ran into an alum, and he was saying to me, he's like, I'm really upset because I work for Jefferies Investment Bank, and there's a women's symposium each year for sophomore women, and no one from Holy Cross signed up last year. And I was like, well, I'm a sophomore, like I'll sign up this year. So I did. And then I was accepted into the symposium. And then through there, girls who stood out were offered a super day, which in finance lingo, that's like the last round of interviews for a finance position. So I was invited back to Jefferies to participate in a super day. And all the while I was keeping up with that alum who had helped me and talking to him about what I should do to prepare and what I should do, what I should expect during my super day. And then my sophomore year, I flew out to New York. I had my super day and I was offered the position. So honestly, if I had not gone to that finance networking reception that one day, I would not be here right now. And I think, going back to talking about the power of the Holy Cross network of alumni, it's like so powerful because like that day and meeting that alum who just kind of like took me under his wing, that truly changed my life. And that's why I'm here today.
All right, Danielle, you got me a little nervous by using the three words finance, networking, reception. Like I just started to break out into a sweat. Like, what do I wear? What will I do when I walk in? And I'm not even going. Okay. Can you just tell me like, what was that experience like going to something so grown up sounding as a finance networking reception? And like, how did you even know what you were supposed to do when you were there?
Yeah, so part of it was once again like talking to the Career Development Center, and there's a specific woman there. Her name's Pam Ahern. She's incredible. She is kind of like the go-to for Finance Wall Street, and I know that in general, the Career Development Center has like several people for different industries that you can go to, which is extremely helpful. So I spoke to Pam, and she was telling me, what I should expect going into it, that I should have questions prepared. The Career Development Center was reaching out to everyone, telling them what to wear. So going into it, I felt very prepared. And I went into it, and we were also given a list of the alumni who were actually going, so I could research them and go on, stalk their LinkedIn a little bit and try to like find a connection and some kind of question to ask. So it was intimidating because, I'm talking to these very important finance people as a 19, 20-year-old, but I felt so prepared for it. And then once I actually got there, something about Holy Cross students is they're really, or just any kind of Holy Cross alumni, they're really easy to talk to. And then once I actually spoke to alumni, the conversation just flowed so well. So I felt very prepared.
Chris, I know one of the things that when students are thinking about, which college to enroll in, they're thinking about what dorms and academic programs and things like that. And once you've graduated college and get into the real world, things change. And sometimes like the strength of an alumni network can start to make a difference in what your life is like after college. What does that mean? Like you're out of college now, you've been out for a few years. What does it mean to be a part of a network? How does that impact your career path?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think one thing that Katsi mentioned earlier, it's kind of not just a network. In certain cases, it's a family. It really, the personal connections that started more on the alumni side have turned into just personal relationships. My mentor that I had my sophomore year, I'm still in contact with very regularly today. Even when I was just recently making a career switch between one firm to another, active in that conversation of weighing out some of the pros and cons of looking at the opportunity versus staying where I am, and kind of doing that risk analysis of taking that step out into the marketplace again. So I really think the real world connections it's still very open and honest dialogue that we have with our connections that were either made first when we were students, or those that were made after the fact, to just with our alumni network in general. And kind of to spin your question a little bit, Drew, the real world definitely looks at Holy Cross as a, with a bit of prestige. It actually led to me getting at my most recent job. I was flying and I was wearing a polo very similar to this, and it sparked up a conversation of, oh, so you went to Holy Cross, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then it came up that I played college sports. Her son also played college sports, and next thing I know, we're exchanging cards, and she was the chief human resource officer of the firm. 8 months later, I get an email asking if I wanted to interview for a position, and here we are. So it's really, the name really holds weight in the real world, I guess you could say.
That is, wow. So that it pays to wear, that's why Holy Cross people are always wearing Holy Cross gear out in the real world. They're waiting to run into those chief human resource officers on flights. That is an incredible story. Katy, I have a question for you, and this is in the Q&A, and I want to remind all of our attendees, put any questions you have about student life or about the Alumni Network in the Q&A, and we'll deal with all those questions. So this one's right out of the Q&A. Katy, how well does Holy Cross prepare students for internships and jobs in grad school? Like, from your experience, how well did you feel prepared for experience in the working world?
It's a great question. I feel like I was really prepared all around, not only from a qualification standpoint, like there's really nothing that qualifies you for a job besides another like candidate, besides what Chris said, right? Like the prestige of the school, and then the well-roundedness that you become when you actually attend, right? Like the first thing you learn when you go to Holy Cross, or at least when I was there, was how to be a man and woman form with others. Like that is something you can take to any career field. And that's been something that's really actually made me stand out, because as a leader, I think it's the quality that I most embody and has made me really good at my job. So not only does it prepare you, like Chris and Danielle mentioned, from a career development standpoint, I mean, I was doing my resume as a sophomore, and it's still the same resume template I have as a 6-year removed alum, right? And I still felt like I had a network to fall back on, that I could ask tough questions, that I could get quizzed on. But the one thing that I knew Holy Cross prepared me for was that I was well-rounded. I knew a little bit of everything. I had experience of vastness of curriculum and people and personnel and activities that you don't really find in a lot of other places. And because of that, you become a really well-rounded adult. And that stands out to a lot of workplaces, because they want to make sure that who they hire is someone who understands how to work, connect, and lead others. And I truly believe that Holy Cross prepares you for that as a student.
And speaking of well-rounded, I gotta ask a follow-up. Music pre-med, like really, like, can you talk about music pre-med? Like where does that come from? How did you balance those two things?
Yeah, well, honestly, there were like 3 or 4 of us who had the same exact majors when I was there. And I'm really just somebody who, I love science and I love data, and I still use it a ton for my job, but I'm super creative. And like, that is something that's really important to me. So for me at school, it was important to get both in that experience as well. Like the buildings and the fields are very different. And so I still wanted to be able to exercise both muscles. And so I got a chance to do it. I think that's the nice part about Holy Cross now. You can not only make your own majors, but there's so much possibilities. And really, like, you can graduate with pretty much anything. I truly believe that. I'll go on record with saying that, and still get a job that pays really well. And I want to make sure I can help dismantle that perception early on. Like, you leave with a graduate degree that has prestige, right? An undergrad degree that means something in the real world, no matter what it is. So I would encourage all of you to pursue what you love and do it with all your heart.
Danielle, I keep going back to this experience you had with your internship. It feels so grown up. You were just a college kid working in this world. Were there times where you felt like that you needed to like run away? Did you ever feel overwhelmed, or like you were over your head, as a college kid in this very adult world? Did you ever feel like you were over your head?
There were some times when I would feel a little overwhelmed when it would hit me. I remember one time I was in a phone call with a CEO of this huge healthcare company, and then my boss, and it was just the 3 of us. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm in this phone call right now. I'm only 21 years old. This is so bizarre. But coming from Holy Cross, I was so confident in my abilities. And I think like something about Holy Cross that's really important to be said is that this school teaches you to learn how to learn. Like I remember one semester I had multivariable calculus, and then right after I had Italian, and then right after that I had history of Christianity, and it literally felt like I was speaking 3 different languages, and you have to constantly adapt and think critically about very difficult. These are hard classes. Like this is an intense school, and you have to think critically about it. So I think that skill that I learned from Holy Cross was really made it easier to adapt in my internship when I was feeling overwhelmed, because like I knew that I can learn quickly from Holy Cross, from this education, and be able to adapt quickly. So I think that, and also once again, just having that alum who was helping me throughout the way, who if I was ever nervous about something or confused, I can shoot him a quick email or hop on the phone with him. And he was always so willing to help me, even though he had a billion other things to be doing, but was always so quick to get on the phone with me, which was just meant the world to me.
Chris, I know when you're maybe in high school and you see people in the working world, you think that they always had this in their mind. They always had this plan. they're going to execute. And so many of our attendees are accepted students tonight. Their life is filled with adults who are asking them, what are they going to study when they go to college? What are they going to do after they go to college? And sometimes they feel like they have to have a plan. Can you talk through like your trajectory a little bit? Like, do you remember what you came into Holy Cross thinking you were going to study, and maybe what you thought you'd do after college, and how that trajectory has changed?
Yeah, I remember vividly. And I also remember vividly how quickly it changed as well. I came in chem pre-med, and I wanted to actually go to dental school. That was like my plan going in. That was actually my plan from when I was in 10th grade in high school. And when the opportunities really came up to take part in summer business program and take part of these other different activities that were offered through the school, I really realized just how much more I was interested in business than I was in medicine. So from there, I was able to pivot early within my studies and make that transition more over to the business side versus the healthcare side. And then, like I previously mentioned, making the transition from finance to procurement specifically during my internship was just another opportunity where I was able to take that more focused approach on my career. So it definitely changed. I will say, if you have a plan, stick with it. But you're going to know if it feels right or not.
Same question to you, Danielle. When you were 4 years ago today, when you were one of these accepted students in April of your senior year of high school, did you have an idea of what you thought you were going to study in college and what you thought you'd do after college? And how has that narrative changed or stayed the same?
Yeah, so I mean, part of the reason I came to Holy Cross was because it's liberal arts and because you have the wiggle room to kind of feel out different subjects the first few years of your college experience. So coming into it, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I feel like maybe I'll do something with business, which I feel like a lot of students say when they go to college for the first time. But once I actually came here, I was able to take different classes across several different disciplines. And from there, I realized I really liked economics. And that's why I decided to stick with economics. But even being an economics major, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my actual career. And from there, I had a marketing internship my freshman year, following my freshman year in the summer. And I felt like I wanted something more quantitative, and that's how I kind of fell into finance. So it's all just trial and error, and coming to Holy Cross and be able to take classes across several different disciplines was extremely helpful in having me kind of, hone in on what I want to focus on.
Katia, we heard about your family connections at Holy Cross and your sister. What was it, outside of just your sister, what was it that drew you to Holy Cross?
That's a great question. I mean, I really thought for me it had come down to two schools. It was Marquette or Holy Cross. I thought I wanted to pursue sports medicine potentially. And I just didn't want to get pigeonholed to what Danielle was saying and to like going there, maybe not enjoying it. And I enjoyed the things that Holy Cross offered outside of just the academics. I really loved the closeness. I love that it's a campus where most people actually live there, and that there was going to be a shared experience and closeness that we could all enjoy. And I also had done my research on the network, and I studied the alumni. So I was like, are these people that I would actually want to embody and someday replicate my life and career around? And that really meant something to me. And then because I had a sister there, I actually ended up going my senior year up for a weekend, and I had a blast, you guys. I truly just loved it. Everyone was so personable. Everyone was so kind and sweet. And I really felt seen. And in a college where it could be so large that you're just a number, I felt like I would maybe not succeed there, because I really wanted to represent something and make an impact wherever I went.
Chris, let's say I give you the task of addressing the incoming first year class on move-in day. You're gonna speak to the entire freshman class at Holy Cross. What piece of advice do you think you would give to them, to this group of students just beginning their career at Holy Cross?
That's a really tough one. That's a really tough one. One piece of advice to the incoming class, I would really think it would be just to first live the mission, but live in the moment as well. I think one thing that it's very easy to do when you're around so many other successful individuals. I mean, you're talking about the best of the best from each high school that are coming into these programs at Holy Cross. And it's very easy for us as just driven individuals to continue to look to that next chapter, to look for post-grad, to look at your career, to look at that 5-10 years from now. But that one piece of advice I would give is to really live in the moment. It's a really special time. You're surrounded by a special group of individuals, being students and staff, faculty included, and to just enjoy the ride along the way, because the academics is going to take care of itself. That's why everyone's here on this call as an accepted student. But I would say really to live the mission, but live in the moment is probably that one piece of advice that I would give.
Danielle, I have a question for you from the Q&A. If you can think back to your first year, think back to your move-in day. The question is, how easy is it to make friends at Holy Cross? Do you remember, I know a lot of students, when they start college, their big anxiety is that they're new. And for many students, some students haven't been new since kindergarten. And, recreating a sense of community and a friend group is really intimidating to many high school seniors. Do you remember that experience of being new and what that felt like at Holy Cross and what it was like to make friends?
Yeah, it felt like yesterday. I was so afraid. I was so excited for Holy Cross because I love this school, but I was also so afraid because I was so used to my high school friends, and no one from my high school was coming to Holy Cross. So that made it even scarier because I didn't have anyone to fall back on. But it was so easy to make friends because, first off, like being in a dorm, you will become best friends with people who live on your hall. Like my 2 roommates, I lived down the same hall freshman year, and they're my best friends who I'll be friends with for life. So it's very easy to make friends, and I wouldn't say that there's any cliques or anything. I think like one of my best friends is on the lacrosse team. I'm not an athlete at all. So I think it's really easy to make friends, and there's a lot of clubs to take part in as well, where you kind of just meet who, it's just very easy to make friends and find people that you have similar interests in. I remember thinking the first week of freshman year, I was meeting so many people and everyone was so welcoming. And I remember getting like so many people's numbers, and it was so overwhelming and exciting at the same time. But you will make friends that you will have for life. And it's very easy to do here, especially because of the sense of community at Holy Cross.
Katy, do you have anything to add?
Well, I would just say, like, to Chris and Danielle's point, get uncomfortable. Like, to your point, Andrew, like, everybody's new. Everyone is like, they don't really know what they're doing. No one really knows what they're doing, right? And guess what? That does not change in the real life either. So I would encourage you to get uncomfortable. Till this day, one of my best friends is still a guy I met who is a Canadian baseball player that I met in my freshman year of my calculus class. We were both kind of terrible at calculus. And now he's in sports and I'm also in sports. So I highly encourage all of you to get uncomfortable, share a connection with somebody, make new friends that you wouldn't expect.
And another question for you, Katy. Have you had the experience of being in the real world now where you've met or connected with a Holy Cross alum in some way that you didn't know as a student or didn't know, and that connection that you both have of having attended Holy Cross was added something to your day, your week, your month, or your year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Andrew, I'm like a shameless like crusader seeker. If you have a bumper sticker and I happen to be driving by you, I'm like that person that rolls down the window. I'm like, I went there too. Like, it's totally something I shouldn't be doing. Yet I have in LA in the 405. And in one of those experiences, I actually met this guy who was a 2005 class alum. And we ended up running the Holy Cross Southern like club out there together and hosting event yearly. We even hosted the baseball team one time together because he was a former baseball player. So I love Crusaders. And that's like, I was shopping for an apartment. I was trying to buy a condo actually. And I ended up visiting a condo in Boston that a Holy Cross Crusader lived in, and we had gone to Jamaica together. Like, and we didn't know each other super well. So we're everywhere and we all love that we went there. So you really could make friends anywhere you go. I truly mean that.
Chris, this anxiety that students have of making a new friend group, I think when you're in high school, nothing is more important than your friend group in high school. And when you're in college, you realize, well, you're going to make a new friend group. Can you talk about the peers, your peers during your time at Holy Cross, your friends, and if you have, and how you've stayed connected in your years since you've graduated?
Absolutely. I also had the pleasure of being a member of a sports team, so I've kind of have a two-part perception of this. So first, for the non-athlete side, really from people that I met in my Montserrat and throughout my freshman dorm are some of the closest friends that I still am very much in contact with today. Relocating to a new city actually this week. Some people in that hall live in the new city down in that greater DC area, and they're like already welcoming me when I'm arriving later this week. So to say that we're still in touch would be an understatement. Just met a really incredible group of individuals in that hall, and still remain in touch with them every day, and friends that I met not just on the hall, but also teammates as well. Like, these people are going to be people that are a part of my just, major life events, weddings, things like that. It's just great people that I wouldn't consider just friends anymore. They're definitely family at this point.
And for our last question tonight, I'm going to give the honor of answering this to our current senior, just a few weeks away from graduation, her last shining moment as a Holy Cross student on the internet here. It's part of our admissions webinar. What are you going to miss the most? I know as you approach graduation, it's a time to sort of reflect on your 4 years and looking into the future here with our alumni panelists, seeing what your life will be like a few years from now. But looking back over your 4 years, I don't know, what do you think you're going to miss the most?
Oh my gosh, please don't remind me that I'm graduating in a few weeks. I can't believe it. This is such a hard question because I love Holy Cross. I'm going to miss absolutely every aspect of it. But I think the people and the sense of community here, it's small enough that I'm always seeing people that I know, and I'm always seeing my friends in passing, but there's always more people to meet, which I think is like so valuable. And there's just such a sense of community here. And also just, I know you said what I'm going to miss the most, but I'm just going to keep talking about things I'm going to miss. The classes here and the connections I've built with professors is unlike any other school. Coming to Holy Cross, you're not a number, your face, your name. I have never had a professor who didn't know my name and who wasn't so willing to help me anytime I needed. And I think just overall, the sense of community at Holy Cross is like, I can't even put into words how special it is. And I know that moving on in my life, I will never lose this sense of community. And I look forward to continuing, keeping my friends and meeting more Crusaders as time goes on, and hopefully connecting with students who come to Holy Cross in the future.
Thank you so much to our panelists and attendees. To all of our attendees, I hope you'll join us on Wednesday for our last accepted student online chat. The link is popping up in the chat feature right now. If you haven't registered, please click that link and register for our chat on Wednesday. Once again, congratulations. Keep in touch. If you have questions throughout the rest of the month, please let us know in the admission office. We are available for all of your questions. Have a great April. Like I said, keep in touch, keep safe, and let us know if there's any way we can help. Have a great night, and thanks for coming.